All right, everyone. It was a weekend where Arsenal got a draw that felt very much like a loss. We're going to talk about the Burnley result on this episode of the Daily Gooner pod, among other topics. But first off, welcome to all of you out in the internet world, all of you watching us here on YouTube. I am one of your many hosts, Raphael, joining you from the United States, and joining me from London, my cohorts to my direct left on my screen is Ryan. Welcome back, Ryan.
Hello, mate. Hope you're doing well.
I am. And below him is Sam. We have a lot to discuss this week, Sam. Welcome back.
Certainly do, and thanks for having me here.
Oh, as always. All right, let's jump just to it. Burnley, again, a match that looked like pretty certain 3 points, or certainly a good opportunity for 3 points. Arsenal began the match just as they have pretty much all their recent matches. Early goal, total control of play, just missed getting a second goal after Aubameyang's 6-minute icebreaker. Saka came within a foot of doubling the lead. Arsenal didn't do that, but they had the game firmly in control. And then, gentlemen, early in the second half, or late in the first half, I should say, it all went sideways with another one of these. We can't predict them, but yet it seems, Ryan, we can predict them. Granit Xhaka with just an epic brain freeze, trying to get the ball out from his keeper, playing the ball with his keeper.
Yeah, and I said to you guys last week, no team actually beats Arsenal. Arsenal beat themselves every single week. And we don't expect the mistakes, but we're waiting for them now. Like it happened with Cedric at Villa, just giving the ball away on the edge of the box. Happened with Xhaka at Burnley, the red cards, the discipline. I'm pretty certain if we don't get the red cards, we don't make the mistakes, we would be in with a shout of top 4 easily. With the way the games were going, especially this one, we should have been out of sight before they even had a shot on our goal. We should have been 4-0 up before Xhaka even made that mistake. But again, the lack of efficiency through our front players cost us. And then Xhaka, obviously.
Some of that is, how much of that is lack of toughness? How much of that, Sam, is growing pains? I mean, I'm sitting on my couch and I'm muttering things about Bukayo Saka, because again, he missed that golden opportunity to double the lead. And I think to the beginning of the Wolves match where he hit the post like 30 seconds in, was set in free. And then I have to stop and I say to myself, this young man is 19. He's won player of the month 3 months in a row. He is going to get better. But Arsenal is in that strange middle where some of it, is due to youth and some of it is due to just lack of temperament. Where do you draw the line with that in the squad?
I think in regards to Saka, as he grows and plays more games, gets more experience, the shooting and it's really down to really small technical details. Because if you look at the way he shoots, he's 9 times out of 10 he's trying to do it off the outside of his boot. Not drift away from in feet, slightly better in the lead up, and it's obviously we've seen this season due to various reasons. Aubameyang's had a really to finish him. Yes, he has bailed us out in some. That really needs to come from the experienced players.
Right, and let's looking at it. Again, we're talking about how much the squad has changed since they went to four at the back right around Christmas time. They were able to get away, Ryan, from the 3-4-3. They were able to put a proper attacking mid in there to feed the front line, and opportunities and goals started to come and points started to come. A little off in this one. We've said, obviously, Emile Smith-Rowe getting a rest. He looked a little worn, a little tired in the previous matches. Martin Odegaard was not really sharp, as sharp as he could be, but yet, is this where you look to other players to kind of step up? Again, it seems at Arsenal, we talk about lack of mental toughness, but also what we see consistently for all of the talent that seems to be coming up in one person one week, one person another week, when they're struggled, they don't score.
No, it's honestly quite baffling how our front four seem to be over reliant on one player at a certain time to score the goals. It was Lacazette for a while. Now it's Aubameyang again. With Odegaard, he's still adapting to the style of play, to the team, to his teammates, and he's doing. I thought he played pretty well at the weekend. Willian played pretty well as well. Obviously, Willian could contribute more with some goals here and there, but he got another assist. So really, I don't know what to put it down to, because when you're in the positions to score, like you 9 times out of 10, these players should be scoring. And I don't know if it's down to nervousness or lack of concentration or something like that, but the front four they weren't at the races. When Aubameyang scored, I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to be one of those games where we score first and absolutely batter them. And we did batter them, but we didn't have anything to show for it.
And again, they have no margin for error when they do that, Sam. Interesting change in the back. We've seen Cedric in a rotation at some point with Hector. When Hector's starting, he's, Cedric's behind him. And then when Hector's not available, Cedric is the man. Cedric has been understudy as well on the left side. In this match, though, Callum Chambers finally got a start. Is this a matter of, is he somebody who's considered for the future, or is this the manager trying to see, let me see where this player is? He's been gone a long time. Let me see what I have with him now that he's fully rehabbed that injured knee.
For me personally, I don't believe that this is a test out for the future. I believe that it's a case of he needs to improve his market value to basically show to potential suitors that he's up and ready for the rigors of the league. But in regards to that individual game, Cedric has been playing a lot, and it was said on the day that he'd been rested, which is absolutely fair enough. I think in terms of Burnley, they pose a difficult problem in terms of their high ball and the way that they play, because they like to target the fullbacks. Given Callum Chambers' height over Cedric and also Hector Bellerin, it was a smart ploy by Arteta, because it stops them from being able to win the ball in a wider area to then play off the second ball, which they like to do. Because if you look at the Burnley side, they haven't really got any creative outlet in the middle of the park. It is literally a long punt 9 times out of 10 to the wing, second ball, the second ball to the side that Dwight McNeil plays on. 9 times out of 10, he'll pick up the second ball, and then they're down the line, ready to whip balls in for Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood. But it was Mattia Vidra who really had a nothing game against us. But I think in terms of Chambers, I don't see him staying past the summer. I think that he's going to be a part of the squad shake-up.
And we'll get to that in just a moment. That's a very relevant topic. But I'm going to approach it this way, Ryan. After this match, we've been talking all season, really going into last year when the managerial change was made. Both of you were discussing, just how weak we were in midfield, and that Arsenal's major area of renovation needed to be the midfield. And we've seen in the attacking ranks, Smith Rowe's come through, Odegaard's there. That's improved the performance of the attacking three. But we look at the midfield four, the was in the central and then the holding mids, and we've got four names: Thomas Partey, Mohamed El Neni, Danny Ceballos, Granit Xhaka, and we've these last few matches, a lot of mistakes from those units, not so much from Partey. Partey's issue has been staying healthy, but with the other three, Ceballos made two critical mistakes that almost knocked Arsenal out of Europa League. And then we saw Xhaka here just hand away, as you said, 2 points. And then as you alluded to earlier in the match, if you go back to the first Burnley match where he got the red card grabbing the player around the neck, that's what prompted probably Arsenal's worst stretch of the season, because they lost that match and then he missed 3 games. He lost his appeal. And from those 3 matches, they lost 2 and they drew the other one. And that's when they found themselves sitting at 15th. And when they needed Xhaka to be there, because he's their Iron Man, he wasn't there. And this is not a new thing. And neither he, nor Ceballos, or El Neni are kids. We can't say, as with Bukayo Saka, oh, he'll just get better, he'll grow out of it. Here's the question for me. I think it's a question for all Arsenal fans. How much of those habits, I call them Mustafi-esque habits, can be coached out of those players? Or how much of those, or are those mental frailties just part of their DNA, and their solution is simply you've got to replace them in the off season when you get the opportunity?
I think
of those
with
three,
Xhaka,
would you retain? Let me phrase it that way.
One of them, I'd only keep Xhaka. I'd sell the other 2. I'd let Ceballos go back and I'd sell El Nene. But with Xhaka, he has these moments every now and then where he makes a mistake or he gets sent off, and then he goes on a 15-game stretch of just being absolutely wonderful. He's a great player to watch when he's on form. And then he does this. Like, it happens every so often. And I think with players like that, I don't think you're going to get top 4, and I don't think you're going to win the league. Having someone that at any given time can just make a mistake like that. And I've always, as you know, I've always backed Granit Xhaka. I've always been a big fan of his. But I do think I would keep him as a squad rotational player, because I think his leadership and his quality that he has on the ball in certain games would be good for us. But I don't think he's a guaranteed starter in a championship winning side, or a side that wants to make a run at the Champions League places.
All right. So, Sam, going to the rotation, to the rebuild of the project, we know in January, Arteta's first big role, really from last summer to this point, was getting all of the malcontents, getting the locker room lawyers out of the squad. It started with Matteo Guendouzi, sending him on loan. And then we've seen, Mustafi, Kolasinac, Ozil. We talked in our last pod just a week ago about how the stories of the discord and the negativity that we kept seeing in the press, even after wins, that's disappeared. But it seems that there's like another layer that Mikel needs to root out, that Ryan just started referring to, and that is mental frailty. These are not players who have a problem with attitude. They just keep making. They can't stop making mistakes at critical times. And a similar question to you: is this like the second wave that he needs to weed out?
Essentially, yes, because you need to think about it. And as Ryan said, currently we haven't got the players to make top 4, and you've got to take into consideration the people that you expected to step up when we was going through that bad period. They didn't step up, and that's right across the board throughout the team. Whether that be for the situation of what was going on with Ozil and Mustafi, Kolasinac, etc. But on the field, you could see some players gave up, and going through that period, some players didn't have the mental strength to get through that. Now we've seen them improve with a change of formation. As Ryan said, there's always going to be that game where it doesn't go right, and you can't see the players making it go right because they haven't got the mental strength to do so, to drive it through. We haven't got players that will pick a game up and go, you know what, I'm going to drive us through this. We haven't got that type of player in the squad, I don't think. Midfield is where most games are won and lost. And unfortunately, barring one of our midfielders, they're not good enough. So I think what Mikel really needs to concentrate is to sorting that midfield out and to have another creative midfielder in there, and also get someone like Basuma to sit next to Partey, people that are going to win the ball back and drive you up the pitch.
So, I was similar question. You said a tough Basuma, somebody to anchor, more creative in the mid. So, who are the two that you would you move to, or would you move three in the summer? I think El Neni's a given, but who would of Xhaka and Ceballos? What would you do with that pair?
I agree to a certain extent that Xhaka can be a useful squad player, but given his belief in himself and his overall arrogance in himself, I don't think that he would accept being a squad player. And I think if an offer of, say, 30 to 40 million was to arrive at Arsenal's door, I firmly believe that they will be considering that. When you take into consideration that he's got 2 years left of his deal, he's going to need to renegotiate a new deal if nobody comes in for him and we don't sell him this summer. El Neni, as you say, that's a given. And Ceballos, we need somebody like Ceballos that isn't Ceballos, because as much as he's got love and desire for this club, he's far, far too inconsistent. And I actually don't believe the Premier League is suited to his game.
I'm going to give you a first bite at a rumor that we thought, I think we discussed it a couple of times, that was in the past. Houssem Aouar was the darling of the last window. We were here on deadline day, clicking through after Thomas Partey came. It was official, and we were all wondering, like, could you pull a rabbit out of the hat? It seemed that it was dead. Could it be revived at the 11th hour? And then we thought, stories of whether there was bad faith negotiations, whether his brother had sabotaged it. We don't need to go into that degree of rumor mongering, but it seemed that going forward that he was somebody who was in the past. He had his opportunity to join, and then he was gone. But in the last week, I've seen his name resurface as a potential target. Sam, would you embrace that if you're not going to pay 25 or 22 million to Real for Dani Ceballos? Is that the kind of creative option that you're looking for in midfield?
I know I'm going to upset some of our Patreon people, but for me personally, I wouldn't be looking at Houssem Aouar. Whilst he's a very good player and can be in future, I don't think that he has the creative outlet of what we're actually looking for, because he doesn't actually create that many chances per game. And I think that we would be looking in another direction.
Who would you be looking for? Is there a name? I know you and Ryan do this weekly where you're looking. I know you brought Marcel Sabitzer up at the very beginning of your At the Bar series, but is there any other name out there that intrigues you coming into the summer window?
I'd be looking to keep Ødegaard as a permanent deal. I think that Ødegaard's a superior player to Houssem Aouar.
Okay. But as far as midfield, if you're letting Ceballos go and you're letting El Neni go, you've said Basuma would be one option. Who would that other option be? Or who are options? I'm not limiting you to one.
It's difficult to say, really, because it really depends on where Mikel Arteta is looking in terms of formation. Because if we go into a 4-3-3, then I'd say someone like Sabitzer would be brilliant because he's good at both sides of the ball. He can go forward and he can create, and he can also come back and make that defensive contribution. It purely depends on if we're going to be keeping the 4-2-3-1. Then for me, it's Ødegaard over Hussain.
Okay, Ryan, I'm going to give you a chance to put on your scouting cap here. Sam gave this wonderful term. We're looking for a Ceballos who isn't Ceballos. Who would that be, in your opinion? Start with that.
I'm going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons right now, and I'm going to say Hussain.
Okay.
And I'm going to suggest playing him next to Ødegaard and next to Partey as a deep line playmaker, because he is very press resistant. He passes through the lines. He can arrive in the box late. We've seen him score goals from midfield for Lyon in the Champions League and so forth. So he doesn't create the chances. Sam is very much correct in that instance. But what he does do is his pre-chances created, the pre-assists, the passing between the middle third and the final third, getting the team up the pitch. Where Thomas drags us up the pitch by travelling with the ball, or while passes us up the pitch. And I think having that dynamic of Aouar, Partey, and Ødegaard, other teams are just not getting the ball back. And then when it comes to the big teams away from home, we have Bissouma on the bench or as a rotational player that can come in and shore the game up. But when we play the big teams away, we can play Partey, Bissouma, and Aouar or Ødegaard. Then we have different. We have Plan B, Plan C, all of it. We can play different types formations, ways of playing, and I think Aouar as the deep line playmaker, what Ceballos does now, would be better than spending 20 million or so on Ceballos.
All right. That leads to the question: if you and I'm all for beefing up the middle of the midfield, but Sam, where's that going to push Emile Smith-Rowe? You had a very intriguing line in one of our chats where you talked about him as saying as his future. You compared him. You said in many ways, if we were going to go out and spend a lot of money on say a player like Jack Grealish, for example, you said, well, that seems to be where Emile's game is going, that he looks to be somebody who might be played on the left side. And I believe the phrase you used is he could become in the future an English Robert Pires. If Arsenal is going to beef up that midfield, what happens to him next year? Where does his future? How do you see the manager trying to mold him?
As I say, I think that he will be considered as a left-sided option in the front three. But also, if you think that the midfield will be beefed up, he can also challenge for that position because he is very good at the third man runs and getting up the pitch in that aspect. But I really do think Emile Smith-Rowe's future position will be either on the left-hand side, on the right-hand, or the right-hand side, because he's adept at using both feet in that aspect. But I think he likes to drift out into the wider area to help when he's playing in as a number 10 anyway, and interchanges with the player that's up there. So he could be a very interesting inside forward option moving forward, because it still allows Tierney to really do what he's good at and really overlap as he does at the moment. It confuses the opposition because it pulls their fullback inside, and if they need to, then the winger to track Kieran Tierney, 9 times out of 10 that doesn't happen. So in regards to opening space, he's a really interesting option to have on the inside forward position.
All right, all right. So let's put Burnley to bed. As disappointing as it was, especially disappointing because it denied Arsenal the opportunity, had they taken all 3 points, Ryan, to walk onto the pitch against Tottenham, knowing that the victory could have leapfrogged them over Spurs. They're not going to have that opportunity now. They can still pull within a point. But before then, very dangerous match against the club that ended their Europa League dream last year. They have to go to Greece and play Olympiacos. Can't take this one for granted. Certainly after the last minute's escape in the last round. What do you look forward? How do you think Arsenal is going to approach this match coming up in 2 days?
I think we'll see a very similar side to what we saw against Burnley. I think we'll probably see Pepe on the left rather than Willian. I think we'll see Partey, Xhaka, the usual suspects. And we'll see probably Gabriel at the back because of his athleticism. But I'm not worried about Olympiacos. I don't want to sound too confident, but what I saw last season and from what I can understand, they've not really improved. They've signed our sloppy seconds, as we would say in Socrates. So I'm not worried. We should have put them to bed last year. Going to their ground, it's not going to be as daunting as it was last season because there's no fans. So I'm hoping we just put the tie to bed in the first leg and won't have to worry about so much the second leg.
All right, Sam, I'm gonna let you tee up. Start looking at North London Derby. Last time, obviously, very different world now from the last time they played. Arsenal went in kind of limping into that match. Tottenham was on a high. Tottenham beat Arsenal at their ground 2-0. It was over by halftime. Very disappointing result. And of course, afterwards, that match put Tottenham top of the table, pushed Arsenal way back. I don't think they'd bottom out quite at 15th yet, but they were close. Everybody talked about the gulf between them, and now here, when Arsenal has a good Sunday, they can walk off just 1 point behind Tottenham. Tottenham's really kind of drifted. They're very hot and cold right now. Not that good away from their ground. How do you see Mikel Arteta approaching that match?
We saw in the last game that Jose really enticed us on to their team and effectively hit us on the sucker punch. The real issue that I've got going into this match is that we really need to keep a close eye on Son, possibly Bale, and Harry Kane, because if you nullify them three, they're not going to do anything. And I can say that you need to nullify them as hard as it is to do. We really need to turn up in this game, and we've had history of where we've been very slow starting in games. Can't afford that. We need to really hit them quick on the break. And I think if we were to be able to get an early goal, that will really put the clappers on them, so to speak. They'll have a bit of a wobble, and in that wobble, you need to take advantage. We literally can't allow them to dictate and to basically get into their rhythm early.
All right. You saw Thomas Partey left that match early, Sam, with an injury. This was a very compromised Arsenal squad at the time. Sam, Ryan was alluding to the fact, and I'll let him take his chance at the lineup in a moment, but that might see a very similar front lineup against the Olympiacos that we saw the weekend against Burnley. You think Mikel's going to save his best 11 that he has right now for Sunday?
Unfortunately, no. The best 11 needs to play against the Olympiacos. We need to sew that game up early doors so that we can get through to the next round without minimal stress in the second leg. Unfortunately, where we're at right now is the Europa League is our main priority. As big as what the North London derby is. Unfortunately, Europa League's just bigger right now.
Okay, but with some players coming off injury, does this mean I'm going to give you, and then I'm going to go to Ryan. Do you start Tierney in this? I guess it sounds like you have to.
Yeah, I think so. You start Tierney in there.
Xhaka and Partey as the two.
I would probably say Partey and Ceballos.
Odegaard is the 10, given Smith Rowe's. We don't know if he's 100%.
Yeah, and front three, I'd go for Pepe, Aubameyang, and Saka.
Pepe on the left. Okay.
Yeah.
Ryan, how would you line them up against Olympiacos? Let's start with Olympiacos.
So I'd go Matt Ryan in goal. I think Leno needs the competition. I'd go Cedric, Luiz, Gabriel, Tierney, Xhaka, Partey, Saka, Odegaard, Pepe, and Aubameyang.
Okay, so very similar. So on Sunday, how much rotation would you do? How would you line them up then?
I would rotate the front four. I'd rotate all the front four. I'd put Lacazette, Willian, Smith Rowe, and Martinelli. And then in the midfield, I'd have
ready for 60 minutes. Martinelli?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the game for him. And midfield, I'd have Ceballos and El Nene. As painful as that is against Spurs, we kind of need Partey readily available for the second leg if it is not as comfortable as we'd like. And then I'd have Cedric at left back. I'd have Mari and Holding, Bellerin or Chambers at right back, and Leno in goal.
Okay, Sam, let's take similar question of lineup, but I'm going to give you a couple of options. Let's say Arsenal get the away goal and they come out, say, 1-0 winners in that first leg. How does that affect the lineup you would put out against Spurs?
1-0 being a narrow margin, I'd have full rotation for the Spurs game, right across the pitch. There's just unfortunately where we're at right now, the Europa League is king, unfortunately. And for me, as much as we all want to win the North London derby and to become a point behind them, unfortunately, we just can't risk players in case of mental frailty in the Europa League.
Okay. A little different from what I was expecting, but I understand the logic completely. Europa is the stronger lifeline at this point to top four, and so it makes perfect sense that the manager would take that. All right. We haven't talked about transfers much, but let's, in this last segment, talking about those two matches, names are starting to bubble up. We talked about Aouar, but other names have come up. We've been putting them on the website. Ryan, let's start with you. Hakimi from Inter, a name that you two have brought up before, has come back. Where would you put him in your priority if assuming Arsenal is going to spend, it looks like they're going to spend this summer, Hector looks like is going to leave, you're going to get a fair amount of money for him, maybe a lot of money for him. Is Hakimi your top priority? Is that somebody you say yes to?
Absolutely, because from how Arteta wants to build Arsenal in attack, we build with a 2-3-5. So our fullbacks are so far wide. Then you have the two deep line midfielders, mainly Xhaka and Partey, and our number 10. And then you have the front three and the two wing backs forward. And our fullbacks, when they get in the right position, Cedric is good, but he's not great. Bellerin is not good at anything. So having Hakimi, who's an exceptional football player, going forward, and I said this on Twitter earlier, if we start playing the way Arteta wants and he gets the players he wants, we will start dominating everyone in possession. So we won't have to do much defending. So having Hakimi in a back four or back three or whatever formation we're playing, it negates the fact he has to defend. And when hopefully we have a decent right-sided centre-back, Konate or Saliba or someone of that ilk, he won't worry so much of having to go forward and then charging all the way back to cover Rob Holding or David Luiz or someone like that. But he also has Partey in midfield who can come across and cover. So I think Hakimi would be close to, if not top of my list.
All right, some different position, but lots of names are bubbling up as potential striker replacements. Looks like while Mikel is being very diplomatic and saying he's going to talk to Alexandre Lacazette about a contract extension, also stories that Lacazette's ready to move on, getting more playing time because it looks like Aubameyang is finding his way central. Also, the economics of paying two strikers who are on the wrong side of 30 a lot of money in consecutive summer windows probably is not the smartest approach. Of the names that you have seen, who intrigues you the most? And again, you're not limited to one.
I'd like Edouard from Celtic, but reading the press, it seems that he's on his way to Leicester to link up with Brendan Rodgers again. For me, my absolute dream signing would be Romelu Lukaku because he's got the mixture of the pacing behind, the hold up of Lacazette. A lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, but his touch isn't that great." It's massively improved whilst he's been over in Italy. With him, he's seemingly now learned to hold, how to use his body when approaching and receiving the ball. And also when he's holding the play up, he picks out the right pass. He's really improved in that aspect of it. I think it's a difficult question in regards to what Arteta wants moving forward. Obviously, with having Aubameyang there, you'd think that he'd be the number one striker moving forward. But it purely depends if we want a hold-up player or if we want somebody going in behind. If it's somebody that's going in behind, we've already got that in Martinelli.
Anybody else that you would look at, Ryan, at the striker position? So you said Lukaku. You actually had a kind of tiered menu depending on how Arsenal finishes that you were sharing with one of our groups this week.
Yeah, so if we won the Europa League, I'd have Romelu Lukaku, similar to Sam. I think Sam hit the nail on the head with his description of what he would bring to us. If we managed to get Europa League, I'd have Andre Silva from Frankfurt. He's been tearing the Bundesliga up this season. He's scoring quite a few goals, and he's put his Milan spell behind him. He's looking like an absolute beast out there right now. So I think he would be an option. And Ivan Toney from Brentford, he's been linked with us a few times the last few months. I think he would be a quality signing, one that could eventually take over from Aubameyang when the time comes.
And we saw his teammate Ali Watkins really proved himself. We all wondered if Villa had overpaid for him, and the answer is probably no, given he adapted to the Prem really well. All right, gentlemen, injury time here on the pod. Give us a prediction. Sam, let's start with Thursday. At Olympiacos, can Arsenal get a win? Let's start with that. Do you expect them to get a win?
Yeah, I think that we'll blow them away 3-0.
Ryan, are you as confident as Sam?
Yeah, I'm going to go copy and paste 3-0.
3-0. All right. Now. Okay, let's play with that because a 3-0 win is a comfortable win. If you do that, Sam, how does that change your approach? If you've got I put a 1-0 over you, and you said, and you hedged and said, okay, we've got to protect that second leg. But if you come home with 3 away goals, how do you approach North London Derby? And if you could set it up the way ideally you wanted it, and what would the result be if you could?
If you come away with 3 goals, then you'd only make slight rotation in regards to if anybody's struggling for fitness. But if nobody is, then you go with your strongest 11. And if that's the case, I want to say 2-1 us.
Right. Similar. You have house money. You got 3 goals in the Europa Bank, and you can play the North London Derby at home the way you want to set it up. What do you do? And what would that give you?
So I would play the similar. If we're 3-0 up in the game against Olympiacos with them to come to the Emirates, I'm going full strength against Spurs. Absolute full strength. Best 11 that we can put on the pitch. And we're going to absolutely hammer them 4-1.
Okay. I'm looking forward to your week, to your weekend. All right. So again, we want to thank all of you out in Podline for joining us for this one. Okay, follow us on Twitter. Follow these gentlemen at Daily Gooner. Sam at Daily Gooner. Is it Daily Gooner Pod, Sam? And Daily Gooner Pod, Ryan? Or is it Daily Gooner? The Daily Gooner Sam and Daily Gooner Ryan. I'm going to misinform people. We got a lot of different names, so we're going to kind of settle here. So you can follow me at Cowboys Nation 1. Obviously, again, looking forward to a more optimistic, a more positive, a more exciting, and a more point-filled weekend than we saw last. And we look forward to seeing all of you next Tuesday to discuss all of this wonderful news. So for Sam, for Ryan, I'm Raphael. We bid you all a good night.